Hello, and welcome to our program, Where God Weeps, a program where we speak about the situation of the suffering and persecuted church around the world. Today, we're coming to you from Beirut, Lebanon, and it's my great privilege to be speaking with the Maronite Archbishop of Beirut, His Excellency Paul Abdel Sater. Lebanon has been confronting a number of dramatic shocks over the last years, politically, economically, and most recently, an enormous explosion which took place on August 4th in the port of Lebanon, destroying greater parts of the Christian quarters. To tell us more about how Christians are living this, the cleanup, the sacrifices that they're making, it's my great privilege to welcome His Excellency Paul Abdel Sater. Your Excellency, thank you for being with us here today in our program.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for being here.
Your Excellency, August 4th, 2020, there was an enormous blast that occurred at the port. Where were you at the moment of this explosion?
At the time of the explosion, I was in my office. I was talking on the phone with a friend of mine. We heard a smaller explosion at the beginning. I had a friend of mine who works here with us at the Chancery. He called me, he told me to leave the office. The time to hang up with my friend on the phone and to think about what was said to me, the second explosion, the big explosion happened. I didn't hear the sound of it. I felt this push of air, hot air, coming in through the windows that have been broken. I saw all the glass around me. That was it. In 2 seconds or 3 seconds, maybe, not more than that, the whole Chancery was very badly damaged. No windows, no doors, nothing. All was coming down. I knew that an explosion happened, didn't know what really happened, but I realized that it was an explosion.
Thankfully, nobody was injured.
We had an older priest here who was injured in his face. Another employee was also injured. He was down at the first floor. He was blown away around 4 meters from where he was. He had the big door of the Chancery falling on him, broken ribs, broken skull. But thank God he's alive. And we lost one other employee in another building that is dorms for young women. He was killed by the blast.
Your Excellency, the greatest damage occurred to the Christian quarter. Why was the Christian quarter so particularly damaged by this blast?
Because the closest area is actually inhabited by Christians.
Around the port?
Around the port. People used to come to work. They used to come from the mountains and stay around the port because it was a way to gain their living. And little by little, they created their own streets, their own regions, areas. So most of the area around the port is inhabited, as I said before, by Christians. And it seems also that the way the blast went off, it was directed toward this area. It didn't get to farther areas, or it would have been damaging the whole Beirut, the capital, which has a region inhabited also by other than Christians. But the one that got hit was mostly inhabited by Christians who used to come to work in the port.
You've been visiting the families, the victims. How would you describe the emotional climate at the moment?
The few days following the blast, people were thanking God, first of all, that they are still alive. And also they were hurt because they lost loved ones and their homes. After that, people started asking the question, the evident question, why? Why did this happen? And you could feel a sense of anger. Not an anger full of hatred, but an anger, why is it happening again? When is it going to stop? Why? Who did it? We want to know the truth. especially those who lost their loved ones, who were killed or disappeared, or even were badly injured. They are still asking the same question. Now, what is amazing is that even though they got their homes destroyed and maybe they were injured, they have this faith in Jesus Christ, in God. They feel, all of them, that a miracle happened. It's true we lost more than 200 and thousands of injured people. But the Lebanese people who are living in this area consider that a miracle happened. Why? Because if you see the destruction, the amount of destruction, you would say there should be more than 200 killed people. And each one has a story. Each one has a story how he or she was saved, how they left the place where they should have been, like pushed by someone, and they were saved from being killed or injured.
Do you have one particular story that struck you?
You know, I have a story of mine. Sitting there in the office, following the blast, I looked at the desk. It was all damaged. Even where I was putting my hands, it was all damaged. But myself, I had a very small injury in the forehead that caused me too much blood coming down, but it was a very small. So for me, it's a miracle. It's a sign that Jesus is alive, that Jesus is with us, even though people can hurt each other, but He is with us to save us.
What is the church doing practically today to help in this first moment of shock, the families, and to try and start lives again?
The church, if you mean by church, priests, pastors of the parishes that were hit, those pastors really should be thanked several times, because since the blast, they have been working night and days. They have been visiting people. They have been checking if someone needs help. They have been providing help, food or otherwise. They have been making lists for the NGOs or whoever wishes to help. So those pastors didn't have a real rest. And people, they appreciate a lot the presence of their pastors beside them in these hard moments. Now, we are trying to afford to people repair for their damaged homes. And you know, all the people who have been hit by the explosion, they wish to stay in their homes. I know the same night following the explosion, people stayed in their homes, even without windows and doors, without electricity. But they had this will to stay in their homes and not leave the place where they have always lived.
Christians are increasingly under pressure, and recently after the explosion, to sell their homes. Muslims have been approaching with cash in hand and saying, look, I pay you so much money to buy your house. What is the interest here?
We heard about this, and a few people came to us telling that they have met people who were offering money in exchange for their homes. You know, it's a very commercial area, if you wish, but it is a residential area instead of being a commercial area. So I would say that some investors would like to buy in order to have something similar to a commercial center, a large commercial center, instead of all these old homes. This is one. Second, if we want to talk about it religiously, I mean in the confessions and rites, some people came to us saying that those who wish to buy are not Christians. And it's understandable because the Christian areas have been always considered as better places in the capital. And people wish to have them. But I think at the end it's more a financial matter. It doesn't have religious or a political background.
The Maronite church, your church, was not spared damage. Can you give us a little bit of a picture of the structural damage that you yourself, other than what you've explained here in the chancery, have experienced on the ground?
We have 6 churches who are very much damaged. The cathedral that has been damaged. When I say damaged, I mean doors blasted away, windows, even walls coming down, roofs coming down, and even pews who have been destroyed. So we have this kind of damage. We have also the pastoral center, in which we work on our pastoral life in the diocese. It's a building of more than 9 floors. Also, it has been hit. We have 2 schools, 1 high school, 1 technical vocational school that were hit, and dorms for young women also that cannot be used now. It needs heavy repairing because we are just facing the port. We have been protected by a few buildings, true, but it's so close to the port now that we got all this damage.
The damage to the churches, does this awaken a sense in the understanding of the faithful of the importance of a church when suddenly you don't have the occasion to go anymore? Something that you took for granted in your day-to-day life, to go to Mass and to experience, suddenly is taken away. Has this somehow given a new dimension of faith to the people?
Absolutely. It started before the explosion with the COVID, with the coronavirus. People now miss coming to church, miss this gathering between faithful and praying together. They miss it. And the second Sunday following the explosion, we had people coming to the church, even though these churches didn't have any more doors, windows, and it was so hot inside, but even though they wanted to come and pray in those churches. But at the same time, their presence meant one thing for me, that they will want to stay where they are, and they want to prove to anyone who is trying maybe in a way or another to push Christians away, that Christians would like to stay where they are because it is their country and because they believe that Lebanon has a message to deliver as a country.
I want to come to this question because it's, of course, the question at the moment, that many consider this like the cherry on the cake, that is the economic crisis, the political crisis, and finally this enormous explosion that took place is like saying for many young people, well, do I want to stay or do I want to go now? Now, finally, it's enough. Have you seen this starting to happen, that young families are wanting to leave, and what can be done in this context?
Yeah, I met with people who wished to leave because, as you said, it was the cherry on the cake. But mostly not because of the explosion. It wasn't so. It was maybe because of the reaction to the explosion. People wished to leave because they had enough of corruption. They had enough of the same thing happening again and again in government and in political life, I mean, or in other things. We have been listening to people going against corruption since many years ago, but corruption is still here. Against violence, but violence is still here. Many people spoke about Lebanon away from all conflicts, but we are in the middle of all conflicts. So the young people have enough of this. Nothing is changing. Corruption is not over. The political people are still the same, thinking the same way, even following the explosion of August the 4th. They are tired of this. We lived during war, 15 years of war, and people didn't leave. And they didn't have the will to leave as they have today. If we wish our people to stay in Lebanon, we need to change We need to change the mentality, the way we rule. We need to understand that Lebanon and the Lebanese people cannot bear anymore being part of any conflict anywhere. They need to find a way. They are the leaders, the political leaders. They need to find a way because the people cannot bear anymore. And the corruption and the economic situation, it's not due simply to the fact that Lebanon is not a productive country. It's mainly due to the corruption that everyone talks about, but no one does anything to change the thing. Or at least I would say nothing is happening till now. Maybe many are trying, but nothing is happening. So people wish to leave because Lebanon has been so since 1943, and it didn't change. They're tired of this.
Your Excellency, there have been calls for a complete change. That is almost, the statements in the protests that have been occurring since October 17 of 2019 on a regular basis have been more or less calling for a complete change. They should all go. At the same time, Lebanon lives a very particular political model, which is a power-sharing agreement. As we know, enabling the Christians and the Muslims in equal partnership in this model, which has enabled a certain stability within Lebanon in perspective to the other countries around in this particular region of the Middle East. If they should all go, what is the challenge then to the political model? Does the political model also need to change, or is it a question of identifying corruption and then trying to root out the corruption within this political model?
There are many factors that need to be worked on. Corruption is one. The system needs to be changed. We need to start thinking as Lebanese, not as a Maronite or a Muslim, Sunni or Shia, or even other different rights. We need also, from the political leaders, to have the human person in the center of their interest, not their own interest or the interest of their right confession, but the human person. Saying they need all to leave is a way maybe to express the anger that exists. But I don't think there is, first of all, not all of them need to leave because not all of them are corrupted, not all of them are bad whatsoever. On a second level, let's say they all leave, who will replace them? Who is getting ready to be a leader in Lebanon? And that's the danger, because the political leaders now are forbidding anyone by their presence, not by force, by their presence, and with the people who are with them, to create the birth of a new leader or new leaders for a new political life in Lebanon.
So the model itself is sound. It's just perhaps changed from within in order to renew this model so that it should function properly.
If we all start working for Lebanon, not for our own profits and benefits, or the benefits of our confession, it will get much better.
Lebanon is a sign. As Saint Pope John Paul II said, Lebanon is a message.
True.
If Lebanon is not able to resolve its challenges, what are the potential implications for the whole region? And therefore, how important is Lebanon for this whole region, and indeed the world?
Lebanon is a message, it is true. And the proof of that is that the second day of the explosion, we had people coming from all areas of Lebanon, Christians, Muslims, young people. They all worked together to clean the damaged area, to help people get their things out of their destroyed homes. So it is true, Lebanon is a message. You cannot find such solidarity between people but in Lebanon. Now, if Lebanon is lost as a message in the area, it means that fanaticism is growing very much in the area. And when you have fanaticism, it's destruction, it's bad. because people will not see the human person in front of them. They will see a heretic. They will see someone who is against them, their enemy, but not the human person. What's good in Lebanon till now is that we are still able to see a person in front of us, not his ideology, not his ideas, not his convictions, but a person that needs to be loved, to be cared for, and with whom we can live. If this is lost, Lebanon will change in his nature, and so will be the area. Because till now, people who wish to live a freedom were always able to come to Lebanon and live this freedom. When you have fanaticism everywhere, you won't be able to go anywhere. Or you will be living in countries where there is no God to begin with. But to have a country that has God in its life, but at the same time respects all people from all confessions and all religions, it's rare to find. And Lebanon is this country, and it needs to be preserved by the international community. The international community till now, I believe, is not appreciating the true value of Lebanon. They're working politics, they're not working humanity.
How do you see this? President Macron was visiting. We've had a number of international leaders visiting Lebanon, pledging hundreds of millions of dollars in aid. Are these disinterested? Is it really true aid? Or do you see that it's always the same story, that there's competing interests? And how do you see this international participation now in this new reconstruction of Lebanon?
I mean, we saw these efforts coming from different countries, and we thank them for all they're doing. But is it enough? His Eminence Cardinal Parolin, when he came to visit Lebanon, he said one thing which is very much significant. He said, the people in Lebanon didn't ask me for money or anything else. They asked me to pray for them. We can't resolve everything with money. We can't resolve a situation so complicated with some aids, some help, financial aid. It can't be resolved. I believe the international community needs to make a decision. Help Lebanon to survive in its richness, in its diversity, or else all the money they can bring will not help, will not change the disaster, the tragedy we're living. It won't change it. They need to exert pressure on different groups in Lebanon so they will calm down and come back to dialogue, to sit together and talk about Lebanon of the future without threatening one another, without fearing one another. And this can be done by the international community. Instead of threatening us with sanctions, which will hurt at the end the people, regular people, it would be better to ask their allies to make this extra effort, to sit with the other and find a solution.
You have hope.
I do. I do have hope. Hope based on the risen Lord, not on political people. No. I have.
How can we help?
You can start by praying more for us. Ask the Holy Spirit to give the wisdom to our leaders in Lebanon and to the leaders of the international community to help us find a permanent, or I would say a long life solution for our situation. You can help us with talking about Lebanon, about the richness of Lebanon, about what is exceptional in Lebanon. So the international community and the people in the world start asking for the protection of Lebanon from destruction. And you can help us, surely, by financial aid, true, because we have, like, I am a small example here. The diocese is a small example. But if you go and visit all the homes destroyed, by helping them to reconstruct, by helping us to repair our churches so people can meet again and pray again. And the churches have been always in Lebanon. A place of meeting, a place of reunion between Lebanese people, not simply Christians. I was a pastor in one church. We used to have every year a celebration to which were invited Muslims and Christians to express their unity and to express their love to the country. So you can help us in this too. You can help us also by giving this nice picture about Lebanon. At one time, Lebanon was a country of terror, but it's not. You have met the Lebanese people. You know how good they are. You know how simple they are and how much they care for the visitors who come and how much they appreciate all the help they get. So it's nice to talk about Lebanon in a different way, not simply as being a place where you can find this party or that party, but also to remind everyone that this is a country where regular people, simple people, fathers of families, mothers of families are trying to continue their lives day to day.
Your Excellency, thank you for having been with us today in our program.
Thank you for being here, and please keep us in your prayers. Thank you.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for having been with us today in our program, Where God Weeps. And if you'd like to know more about the situation of Christians in Lebanon, or perhaps how you might be able to help, I would encourage you to look at the contact information at the end of this program. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.